Welcome everybody to another edition of the In the Paint Show, episode 185. Here with my regular co-host Chelsea Hopkins, Umana. Been a couple weeks since we've been on. We've been really busy. We have so much to talk about this week. We may not be able to get to everything in an hour and 10 minutes, but we're definitely going to try. We're going to talk grassroots, high school, Nike Hoop Summit, USA basketball, the WNBA draft's the biggest probably story in basketball right now, and the NBA playing, obviously. So let's just get to it. How you doing, Ani? How you doing, Chelsea?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Man, just busy time. You know, portal life, phone calls won't stop. A lot of things, but everything's good. How about you, Chelsea?
Recovering. I had a long week at the Nike Hoop Summit. It turned out to be a great event, but I was all over the place with the World Team girls. So I'm doing a little rest and recovery, working from home today. But happy to be back with you guys.
And y'all went 0-2.
Hey, listen, Ani, we're not going to start the show like this, okay? Let's just get into it. First of all, I was managing the International World Girls team, and we had a very strong start in the game. We were up 17 points, and then in the second half, the USA girls team kind of woke up, and they were able to beat us by one possession. So, I think that we could have did a couple things differently to secure that W, but shout out to USA for picking it up and coming home with the victory. I'll give them that, Ani.
So Chelsea, who was the USA team on the USA side that are like really surprised you or got them back in that game?
The USA team featured Joyce Edwards, South Carolina commit, top of the top in rankings, and she kind of just had her way. I think the USA just came out a little bit slow, but kind of once they picked up the pace, picked up the intensity, they pressed a lot in the second half. That just made the difference. But Joyce Edwards shined very bright. Kennedy Smith picked it up at the end. They were missing Sarah Strong, number 1 overall player in class of 2024, and also Jelani Cambridge, top point guard in the class that I believe is going to Ohio State. So I think if they would have had their full roster, it probably wouldn't have even been a close game. So I was happy with what the international girls were able to do. And we featured some top talent as well. We had Avery Howell, who is committed to USC, Kate Koval, who's going to Notre Dame. So super competitive game overall. I was upset with the outcome, obviously, but the USA from top to bottom probably was a stronger team.
Sure. Now, where's the top 1 or 2 girls from? What country, or are they, from North America, or were they just from a totally different country?
This team actually featured quite a few Canadian girls. I believe we had 5 or 6 on the roster. Honestly, it just depends on the year. This particular year, some of the other girls that we were very interested in from France and just other countries in Europe, we have difficulties in bringing them because they're playing professionally. Their federations won't release them. So kind of the way it works is, we have a list of girls that we would love to have attend the game, and then ultimately we get who we get. So we had a strong team, but it featured 5 or 6 Canadian girls. We had a girl from Croatia, a girl from Ukraine. Girl from Croatia, girl from Ukraine, girl from Luxembourg. So we had a little bit of a mix, but it wasn't as diverse as maybe last year's team. So it'll kind of be interesting to see how that carries over to next year. This was only year 2 of the Hoop Summit for the women. It's been an event going on for 25 years now, I believe. This was the 25th anniversary, but year 2 for the women. So growing it just like we're doing in college and WNBA on the women's side. But it turned out well.
Got it. Now, does these girls kind of look, especially I'm speaking of the international team, the world team is like, wow, I'm so happy to be here? Or are they like, nah, I'm going to get this. I want to be, maybe playing the W one day. Or are they still kind of like, new to the landscape of like what we do here in America, and they're just happy to be here and they're so thankful? Or are they more aggressive than that?
No, they're definitely more aggressive. A lot of the girls actually attend, school out here. They have dual citizenship. So we do have some true foreigners that are actually flying in from overseas, but some of the girls are already here, U.S. territory or in Canada. And, they're playing high school here. They just have dual citizenship, so they're eligible for this game. So these girls are very much ready to compete, used to competing, especially going up against other girls in this particular game. They played against them in high school and so forth. So it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't an overwhelming thing. I think that USA was just more talented.
Ani, on the boys' side, did you see anything different? You know, we talk about the top guys all the time: Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg. You know, they won the game. Did you see anything that stood out to you? Chelsea, you jump in there too. Obviously, you saw the boys' game.
Oh yeah, on the boys' side, definitely the world team. Nolan Trayor was really good. 6'5" PG, very skilled. Has high feel. You know, the one play that I remember was towards the beginning of the game. Like, he drove right. You have Cooper Flagg and Asa Newell trying to block the shot, and he switches hands and finishes with the left, and then hits the backboard. That right there was just kind of eye popping. You got two guys that are probably going to be one of the better rim protectors when they get into college. So just seeing Nolan Trayor just with the shooting, his positional size, the feel, the passing, even just the craftiness with the handle and the finishing, that was really impressive. And also VJ Edgecombe. I thought VJ was really good. I heard he did a really good job in practice. He's someone that's really good in that's like the secondary guard off ball screens and stuff like that. They ran a lot of action for him to just come off like some pin downs, then get it and go downhill. I thought he was really good. I thought he was really good and productive. You can kind of see how he'll be utilized in the college level, where he can be successful. Again, the Victor Oladipo comparison, I can see that. Just maybe not your primary guard, but your secondary guard that can really come off ball screens in the wing, run some action allow him to go downhill. I thought he was good. For the boys' side, Cooper Flagg was really good. I thought Coop was someone that just kind of just made some plays. Like, the thing with him, and I know Chelsea, you know, me and her argue about this, is like when he dribbles and he pulls up, no one's blocking that. He has so much elevation on his shot. And I think as time goes on and as he develops his offensive game, like, that's the one thing that's going to make him such a threat on offense, especially as his three-point shot continues to grow. Is like, when he elevates and shoot, you're not blocking that. He really uses athleticism and length well. He does a good job defensively. I think there's some real upside with the shot creating that I got to see. Ace Bailey kind of struggled just with shot selection. I think down the road, once he understands, you know, how to be patient, play within the flow of the offense, and don't have to force as much, he was good. I know Trey Johnson was solid. Asa Newell, I see some real upside down the road as someone that can stretch the floor out. That was the first time me seeing him actually shoot threes. I thought it didn't look bad at all, and obviously has a rim protector, and obviously has some lob threat and stuff. I think there's some real upside there. So that's kind of my thoughts. I know I'm probably missing out on a few guys, but Cooper Flagg's, like, how he just elevates on the pull up and shoot, I felt that's kind of what we'll be seeing more as he gets better, and I think he'll add more tools to his repertoire.
Well, just to kind of piggyback on what Ani said, the USA boys game versus the world team was very competitive, at least for the first three quarters. The USA kind of pulled away in the fourth quarter with about 8 or so minutes left, and they kind of stretched the game to a 20-point game. But I agree with a lot of Ani's assessment. I was fortunate enough to go to practice throughout the week. Didn't see much of the USA team because obviously we're with the international kids. But I thought the person that helped himself the most was definitely Nolan Trayor out of France, point guard, 17 years old. Every time I came encountered with scouts, they were just raving about this kid. So he definitely, I don't know if he's going to enter the draft this year, but he's been playing professionally for 2 years now. Just amazing feel. And I think he just really helped himself. So whether he enters this year or next year, he will be in the league, and people are going to kind of see him as a force to be reckoned with. I agree that VJ Edgecombe was exceptional, really good in practice all week, vocal, leader. We talked about him before, just about his maturity. Like, that's one thing I noticed about him. Like, he's just like a kid that just like gets it and like understands it and has a way of, you know, getting the other guys to kind of follow suit with whatever he's doing. So respect him a lot. Thought he played really good in the game. Obviously, supreme athleticism in the way he was able to get on the rim for a couple dunks. Then I would say on the other side, Cooper Flagg, Ani, he showed me some stuff. And, we talk about him a lot. And this is probably my 5th time seeing Cooper Flagg live, but I'm starting to get it now. Like, obviously he was cream of the crop and the number 1 player in the class. And, I've heard words like generational and stuff thrown around, and that was where I struggled. But I can see how he is what he is because one supreme athlete, long, gets after it on the defensive end. And one thing I will say about him is he really lets the game come to him. He was in foul trouble pretty much the whole time, being subbed in and out of the game, and still shined and did all the little things that, that makes a player great. So he definitely impressed me in the game. I also thought Boogie Flan, like, I am very, very high on this kid. Just smooth, high basketball IQ, doesn't make bad decisions. And even though he's undersized, he knows how to get his shot off. He knows how to make the correct play. And I was very impressed with him as well. USA team's absolutely stacked, though. We saw flashes from pretty much everybody that they had. Ace Noel, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. The team was just stacked, and it was a little too much for Team USA. And that kind of proved that in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, that makes sense. And obviously, like you mentioned, Cooper, we were at USA basketball mini camp in Arizona during Final Four weekend, and Ani's going to a couple events, and we're trying to we're watching the Chipotle Nationals, and Cooper played really well in the big moments, and they won that. And people expected to win another number 1 team. They finished number 1 and won their 7th Fab 50 title. I know that sounds crazy and a little redundant. It's their 7th title since 2013. Obviously, this team's going to get finished 33-0. They're going to get compared to that 2020 team, which didn't get to play in the end of the season because of COVID. But, I mean, Cooper had 6 blocks in the title game against a good Paul the 16. 20 points, 8 rebounds. So it carried over. Like you said, Ani said maybe his offense is just going to continue to develop and evolve. But at 6'9", if he shoots it decent and he rebounds, he handles the ball, he can be pretty good. At the highest levels. Ani, any player that you compared? For me, I compare him to Bobby Jones, who played at North Carolina, but that's too old for most people to even.
Yeah.
Defensive
Well, who would you say, Ani, more current or more recent comparison?
I think the Andre Karolinko is kind of more spot on. Andre Karolinko, people don't realize I guess he came in later. Into the NBA, but I think like a modern Andre Karolinko. Bobby Jones is a good one because he was a defensive demon. Didn't have like a lot of offensive game, but was a good offensive player.
Yeah, and a great player, great team player.
I just think there's so much more to Cooper's offensive game, and I'm gonna bet on that. That's why. Like, Karolinko's accurate, but I think he can become this secondary, potentially primary offensive option down the road. I do think he'll develop those things. The Hoop Summit, even just watching, he didn't get MVP at some of these games or whatever, but just seeing him operate in the pull-up game. I think he'll add more to that. And I guess I'm also banking on the character, the work ethic, how much the little things that he's gotten better at. I think he'll become someone that will be like your second leading scorer on an NBA roster. And I think down the road could develop into a primary. We kind of seen this before. And I just think he kind of has those tools. But to me, I think he's Andre Karolinko, just a more modern day version.
Got it. Got it. We'll see how that goes when he, goes to Duke and where the other guys go on that team. Make an impact in college basketball. It's hard for freshmen to make an impact, as we've seen compared to the past 15, 20 years ago, where the top recruiting classes had a big impact. And I guess real quick, just to jump gears, do you guys see that with? We're talking about the transfer portal. The teams are old. This college tournament. It kind of showed with Kentucky's, Kentucky's change from Coach Calipari, and it seems like a lot of guys didn't really jump on that job, or they're kind of like, well, maybe I'll stay where I'm at. Ani and Chelsea, either one of you jump in. Is it because you think the portal and because, hey, I'm not going to, okay, so if I get 5 great freshmen in Kentucky, I'm not winning the national title. So why am I going to jump to that job? I don't think Billy Donovan, who's coaching in the playoff play-in with the Bulls, is like, hey, do I really need to jump back into this? Do you guys kind of see that, or is Kentucky a microcosm of what's going on, or is it just, hey, or is it just timing? I don't want to take that job.
I mean, just a lot of pressure to coach at Kentucky. Like, I mean, I think it's more just that if you're in a good situation right now, they're paying you well. You know, Kentucky, I mean, that fan base can eat you alive. Like, it's a whole different animal. I don't think you have to go to Kentucky and recruit a bunch of 5 stars. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm not the AD or anything, so I don't think that's necessarily the case, but winning is so important, and that fan base, I mean, it's really literally all they have is Kentucky basketball. So you go into a situation of like, you're Scott Drew at Baylor, you've been there for 22 years, you won a national title, and it like, do I uproot my family and go to a situation where it's like every game, I'm either the worst person in the world or the best person? It's just really hard. It's just really hard if you're someone like him to. I mean, he has his other reasons. I mean, I don't know, but like, it's just, for me, it's just like, if I'm in a really good situation right now that pays me well and I got some NIL to work with that I can get guys, do I go take Kentucky where, I mean, the pressure is like you're probably from here and it's like way out here, skyrocket.
Sky high, yeah.
Yeah, it just, to me, it's hard. I don't know if it's the poll, just more like the expectations at Kentucky is nuts.
Well, yeah, and you compare that to the girls' game. Again, there's been a few moves that have kind of changed the course of college basketball. I think one of them was Rick Pitino taking that Celtics job. If he would have stayed in Kentucky, they would have been rolling. They already won 2 of the last 3. Even when he left, they won again with Tubby Smith in his first year. I mean, just Pitino just got it. They were a great team with that 96 team. That's really was a great team. And there's been a few moves like that. If you look on the girls' side, really, Tennessee hasn't really replaced Pat Summitt yet. You know what I mean? They just got a new coach. Who's going to be the next coach after Gino Auriemma? That's going to be a big wow move, whoever that may be when that time comes. And then you look at Tara Vanderveer at Stanford. She's been there since I've been in high school, and it's like, that's going to be a big change. And for her, I could see like, hey, I'm not going to go travel to Rutgers and the East Coast. I'm retiring. I'm not jumping on a plane, for 5 hours with a layover on and a plane delay. Like, I'm cool. After 38 years, I've had enough, so that's, you kind of see it on the girls' side. Obviously, the girls' game is younger, but you see those couple moves that are kind of like huge college basketball moves. So yeah, very interesting on that note. We'll see how Mark Pope, who was a player on that 96 team, did. And how he does, how he does there in Kentucky. Speaking of that 96 team, Monty, let's jump gears here, and then we'll talk USA basketball in terms of the grassroots at the Final Four. Some people say this UConn team is like that. They've won their back-to-back. It was kind of expected. Us three, our brackets pretty much had Purdue and UConn pretty far. I know Chelsea's did. I'm pretty sure you're on it. It's like you could see UConn was the best team pretty early on. Do you feel that way, Ani, or do you just think, hey, it's the field? The field. I didn't think the field was that great, to be honest, on the the field of total 64 teams. But maybe I'm not giving Danny Hurley and that team enough credit. I want to get your guys' opinion.
Yeah, I think that team was really, really good. I mean, to be honest with you, I think Danny Hurley and that staff does a hell of a job. I mean, especially in-game adjustments. I mean, just how they kind of really took away the jump shooting from Purdue in that game, and just the actions they've run to really expose other teams' weaknesses. I think they're a very talented group, and I think just as talented a group as they are, that's how good their coaches are. I just think that they're just a really, really, they remind me of like those Villanova teams with Jay Wright, coaching. It's just like they just pick you apart. Like, they're very talented, they're built within. But man, like those adjustments they make and how they can just like kill you on the defensive end, and they have plenty of options to kind of roll with. Teams like UConn, they're versatile on how they can beat you. You know what I mean? And I think most of these champions, like most of these these NCAA champions, like we see, have versatility. They can beat you inside, outside, and they can really just kill you defensively and just make it like a grit and grind type of game. There's so many ways that they can beat you, and the coaching is just really, really good.
Sure.
I think that's just it. Yeah, I mean, the field wasn't great, but I do think they remind me of those Villanova teams that will win.
Sure.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, I think just to kind of piggyback on that, just watching them, this UConn team is like a very well-oiled machine. Like, Ani said, they can beat you in so many ways. The depth on the roster, the coaching, the adjustments. Like, I think people don't want to consider them the best just in overall because of some of the names on the roster. But when you look at a complete team, like, it's hard to win a national championship, and it's just even harder to do it 2 times in a row. So it's like we have to give credit where credit is due. Danny Hurley did a great job. They beat my San Diego State 2 times this year, which I think that kind of does speak to the field when you look at their margin of victory. I mean, they were smacking people like 30-point, 25-point wins. Like, I think that was what I didn't expect. Like, that was a little unexpected for them to beat people like that. But I think it just speaks to the team that they have and the experience and the coaching and the depth and definitely a all-time great team.
Gotcha. I'll go with that with you guys. I don't think they're the best. I do think the 96 Kentucky team is the best team I've seen in the last 20, 25, let's say 25 to almost 30 years now. They were really good. The next year they went to the final, but their team was weaker and they lost Derek Anderson to a torn ACL in January of that year. Or else they might have won 3. Arizona won that year. That's the last time the West Coast has won a national title. And then basically that 96 and 97 reserves, their bench won it in 98, with Shepard, Jeff Shepard, who's obviously Reed Shepard's dad, Mark Pope. Alan Edwards was on that team. It was Tubby Smith's first year. And then again, it's just hard to replace. Tubby Smith did a pretty good job, couldn't get back to that level again. And I think Louisville and Kentucky are trying to get back to that level again. And they're starting from scratch. They're starting. Yeah. They got a lot of work to do, especially with Danny Hurley, the way he's rolling and some of these other teams. So, obviously people care about basketball so much there. So we'll see how they do. Ani, speaking of the Final Four, and then Chelsea, we'll get your thoughts on the women's, and when we get into this draft that just happened because it's so quick after the NCAA tournament. You talk about USA basketball, Ani, maybe 2 or 3 guys you saw that stood out. Obviously we're going to watch them coming up on these circuits. You went to a couple of the smaller circuits, and you've already seen some stuff in this dead period. Obviously, April's dead. April used to be live, but now it's not live.
Right. Now I've been doing a lot of traveling. There was that New Balance. I just came back from Omaha, Nebraska for Adidas.
Sure.
And then I'm going to OT's Pro Day once we get off of here. No, in USA, I thought Hudson Greer was really good. I think he solidified himself as a 5-star player in 225. That's a kid that's about 6'6" and goes to Lake Travis in the Austin area. Just athletic finisher, really runs the floor well, becoming a better jump shooter. Just, again, and I know I've said it before in previous episodes, he's always been productive in every setting I've seen him. Wound camp, high school games, summer ball games, whatever camp, like in just USA, I felt like he was I felt like he was the best performer. Maybe not the kid with the highest upside, obviously, but I felt like he was the best performer at USA from what I got to see. He was really good. Davion, some guys that are intrigued, like Jalen Montanati, I really like. I'm a big skill and field guy. A kid like him with his size, the basketball pedigree. His dad Brian, who's played, I think at Oklahoma State. Just someone that can make shots, has a high field, can pass, knows how to move without the basketball. I was wondering how he was going to play in that setting. Like, camp settings are always kind of difficult, right? But just seeing him out there playing within the flow and still getting his shots off, still showing his passive feel and stuff like that was really good. Then the third one for me, and I guess maybe not stock rights, but guys that I really was like both zeroing in and seeing how they play in that setting was Davion Atkins. He's a kid that's at Faith Family, about 6'9". Very, very athletic. His athleticism even stood out to me even in that setting, going against some older guys or guys in the classes higher than him. And just blocks, dunks, running the floor, playing hard, playing through some physicality, which I still think he needs to grow in. But I felt like he's becoming a top 30 to 40 kid in 226 nationally. So to me, that was a big stock riser for me. So those three really stood out to me. I want to see how Hudson was at USA, see if he takes that leap to 5-star status, and I think he has. Want to see Jalen Monati just in that camp setting against those athletes and stuff, and I thought he did a really good job. And also Davion Atkins, just someone that's first time at USA. Just seeing it, and it's a big, so it's not like you're going to get a lot of post touches, right? So you kind of have to go get it. And I like that he went and got it. So I think he really helped himself from that week, and even in Omaha, he was really good.
Yeah, I agree with those guys in terms of assessments. We did some interviews with some of those guys, including Davion on Ballislife.com. So check those out. We interviewed Coach Pete. Guy I like that as far as upside, it was Xavier Stanton from Las Vegas, Sierra Vista High School. That guy's a rim protector. He's probably one of the best rim protectors in high school basketball right now, maybe the best. He's growing. His game's growing. He's close to 7 foot. He has a very interesting story on here. He grew up playing football in Vegas, then kind of grew during COVID. He was sitting around. He's like, man, I was just sitting around the house, when everything was shut down, and he grew like 5, 6, 7, up to like 6 inches, and now he's pushing 7 foot. And finally his family realized that, you're probably not going to play football. Football's probably not in your future. So he's just picking up basketball so fast, and that's he's getting acclimated to that highest level in that setting. And he did a good job. So kudos to him. He has great academics. So he's getting looked at by Stanford, those type of schools. And he's very personable. And so shout out to Xavier Stanton. I liked 227 class was solid. They got work to do nationally, but I did like Devin Cleveland from Kenwood Academy in Chicago. I think he's a good guard. And I think it was a good event. I like Jalen Mitchell from Evansville, Indiana, and 227 as well. So let's keep moving forward. Chelsea, let's jump to get to the girls' side. And Iowa did make that final game. In South Carolina, again, we talk about great teams. They finished undefeated, and then we can just transition that, with those great players into this draft, which people are losing their minds over because these girls got so much publicity. Ani, the girls were more watched than Purdue and UConn, even though we said nobody gives a shit. Everybody cared about Iowa and South Carolina, girls undefeated, and it was such a big buildup, and it well deserved. I mean, they were the talk of basketball for the last 3-4 weeks. So go ahead, Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely. I think they said viewership was almost 19 million, which is obviously record breaking on the girls' side, especially. But the final came down to basically the best team winning. I think that what intrigues people the most are just the storylines. If Caitlin Clark is able to slay the giant, the undefeated giant that is South Carolina, then that's a hell of a story and would cap an amazing career that she's had in women's college basketball. But then again, on the other side, you have a great storyline too, and Dawn Staley winning, taking her team 38-0 to the national championship, getting their redemption from Iowa that beat them in the Final Four last year, and kind of getting the job done. So I think everybody was just kind of hoping, whether you were on this side or that side, everybody was tuning in to kind of seeing the final result. And it was a great game. It lived up to the hype. Ultimately, Iowa came out really hot. It was, I think, 20-8 at one time. Dawn Staley didn't call a timeout. I was feeling it. The fans are into it. And then by halftime, South Carolina woke up and they had a 3-point lead. And then from there, they kind of just blew it open in the third quarter, which is their best quarter, and ended up winning by double digits. But Caitlin Clark was guarded by Raven Johnson. Raven Johnson kind of picked up, took the assignment, I guess you'd say, because Caitlin came out super hot and had 18 points in the first quarter. So Raven kind of took on the challenge. And I don't want to say shut her down, but just made it more difficult. I think she finished with 2 and 3 points for the remaining 3 quarters, each quarter, just basically scoring a single basket. And she did a hell of a job. And that honestly was the difference in the game. Raven Johnson was the girl who was waved off by Caitlin Clark in the Final Four last year. Caitlin Clark guarded her about 15 feet. Raven's at the top of the key. Caitlin's in the paint, just kind of saying, "Oh, we'll let you shoot it." So I think there's obviously a little bit of a redemption story there by her with her ability to guard. But Caitlin, exceptional career. I mean, you can make a case. People are trying to make a case that she's one of the greatest college players of all time, and I would have to definitely say she's amongst those greats, definitely. And what she was able to do, the fans that she was able to bring and engage, the excitement that she was able to bring. You got to just kind of tip your hat to a player like that, even though she wasn't able to kind of finish the job and get a national championship.
Yeah, definitely have to tip her hat to her because she's bringing so much, like you said, eyeballs. Even a few people that I know in my life, and they asked me a little bit about, did you watch the girls? Is that really, I was like, wow, they have no knowledge no knowledge of Iowa or UConn. They were just asking me about it. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty more exciting. They're getting better. I go, the guys' games in a transition era. It's a different, we're entering a different era of, and Ani, we kind of saw that at the Final Four a little bit. It's just turned into a young man's game. You got the young man coaches. You could see in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a lot of younger people. They're going to be acclimated to the portal, to the movement. Hey, new roster every year, and that's a kudos to Dawn Staley because she lost 5 starters, right? So like Coach Cal, as a comparison, again, I'm only comparing because they're well known in their well-known programs. Like he didn't adjust like that very well. For what compared to the one and done, getting freshmen, winning with freshmen, which like Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and those kind of guys, the Harrison twins, Brandon Knight, he was winning with those guys. But when it changed to this older group, he didn't have the same, results. So, I mean, got to give Dawn Staley credit with 5 new starters, and it just kind of worked. So that's, it's just that's what I saw, Ani. Did you see that? Could you kind of agree with that? Or you think, no, there's still room for guys that are older and they can adjust? Or it just seems like the girls will adjust better than the guys' coaches, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, the girls will adjust. I mean, the girls, they'll retain more. I mean, they'll retain more than the guys. I mean, you got high major coaches that, I mean, they don't even have a team right now. You know what I mean? Like,
they don't even have
losing 5 is a lot.
Yeah,
through graduation or portal, whatever. But like, I mean, there's dudes that losing like 9 guys.
Yeah,
and it's more common. So it's like junior college. I mean, Division I basketball is like junior college. That's why you're seeing more JUCO coaches actually get on staffs because they're used to someone being there 1 and 2 years and leaving. You know what I mean? So like. The way the men's side is because of NIL, obviously, right? I mean,
sure.
All these coaches changes. We get more coaches that are leaving and exchanging. This crazy. But guys are losing 8 to 9 guys in the portal. Like losing 5 is like, oh, only 5? Shit, I'm
only 5.
You know what I mean? Like, thank God I'm only losing 5 guys. So I just think the women's side can just retain more because it's not all about the money, right? Like it's not like if a high major girl doesn't really play a lot, like let's say she's not playing a lot at like Texas, right? And she goes to a mid-major like a UNT or something. She's not just going to go to UNT for a year then go back up, right? She may actually like just being at UNT and fishing out. Now you see guys that transfer down just to portal back up. Got it. When you talk about, going on a little tangent, but like when you look at the low to mid-major guys, they're selling these guys on be here for a year, then portal up. They're not. I could be ignorant, but you probably see that some on the women's side, but that's not
why they're going to those colleges.
That's not why they're going there. Like it's like come down here, make your 10 to 30,000 a year, maybe 50, and then we'll portal up and go make 300. Like those are the conversations going on in the men's side. So that's why it's just tougher. You know what I mean? Like everyone's just looking for a payday. It's not that's majority of the kids that are in the portal. Now, majority of them aren't going to get a payday, but that's how they all think. You're not getting that as much on the women's side, and that's why they can retain more.
Yeah.
But I also think too, it kind of speaks to just the climate in general, because the portal is portaling on the women's side too. The nature of it's a little bit different, but it's still happening. I think that also speaks to the great Dawn Staley and how she's able to retain her kids and how she's able to get 5-star kids and get them to buy in and say, hey, you may not be a starter and play, 30 minutes over here, but come be a part of something bigger. Let me build you up. Let me get behind you. Let's win this national championship. And I think we kind of saw that with Malaysia Fulwiley. Like Malaysia Fulwiley, obviously big time recruit, came off the bench at South Carolina, but she was the most valuable player in the SEC tournament. Dawn has been on the record saying that she's a generational talent, generational player, but she's coming off the bench for her. So I think that Dawn's able to build these relationships with these kids, with their parents, and basically get them to understand the situation and how it's a little bit bigger than just NIL and money and everything else to get them to kind of stay. Like I think to lose 5 players and then to go undefeated, like that to me should have been the biggest storyline by a mile. Now, obviously, the greatness of Caitlin Clark, took a lot of that shine away, and Caitlin deserves what Caitlin deserved. But that's absolutely crazy, and I think it's kind of unheard of. Like Dawn Staley, 3 championships in the last 7 years. She's on a GOAT like run, like men's or women's basketball. Like it's pretty insane.
No doubt, especially with I think is the climate of more balance, better talent pool on the girls' side. It's a little different than I think Pat Summit, even in Gino's early years. It's the same 3 or 4 teams that were dominating, in my opinion. Again, that's just my view of what I remembered 30 years ago. And we've talked about that. So kudos to South Carolina, kudos to UConn. I like the fact that Danny Hurley Ani was in basically a high school coach 12 years ago. You know what I mean? A lot of the guys, 3 of the 4 guys were high school coaches not that long ago. Again, I looked at the NC State and I'm like, oh my God, how did they get out of this region? But still, Kevin Keese did a hell of a job with that team. They just weren't that great of a team. You know what I mean? But he did a hell of a job with that team. So kudos to those guys. It's been like we said, a hectic couple of weeks. We thank you guys for tuning in, episode 185. So we're gonna now jump into the big topic of this last couple of weeks. And and Chelsea, did it carry over from the games? Because more people are watching the game than ever before, but that also means there's less people that are informed than ever before. So you got them watching the game. Now they're going to watch the draft. So the draft took place earlier this week. Again, the WNBA season is going to tip off in a month or whatever it is. And it's just a really quick turnaround. These teams have to do their homework. But you have all these people saying, this is a generational draft. These girls are going to change the whole WNBA. Let's pump the brakes for a minute and give us a take of that. And then also a take of, is that really how it works? And then also, the basketball part, but also talk about the social part, because I mentioned to you last year's draft coverage wasn't very helpful for the girls in terms of how they drafted questions. I just want to know, how was this draft?
Yeah, well, to your point, these college players have brought a lot of new fans that we hope will carry on to the W. And we welcome you, because I'm here to educate everyone on the history of the league, the great players that have been in the league, and what this class has done. I will say this is the best draft class ever in terms of social media influence, presence, marketability, personality. We have never seen nothing like this group in terms of that. And I say that because the WNBA draft was on ESPN, April 15th, prime time. These fans, whether they watch basketball or not, they know who Angel Reese is. They know who Caitlin Clark is. They know who Cameron Brink is. And I don't even know if it has really so much everything to do with basketball. Like these are figures that are prominent, that are to the forefront, and I don't want to say they just happen to be, hoopers, but they're known for so many different things. So I will say 100% that this class is top of the top in terms of that. Now, when we move on to the basketball side, this class is very average. If I give my personal opinion, I see 1 star in this class in Caitlin Clark, maybe 2, and one of my favorite picks is Rakia Jackson. But other than that, I just see a lot of girls that are good for the game, bring their fans, will be formidable, have long WNBA careers. But because people don't know the greatness of the WNBA as it stands right now, like it's going to be hard for a lot of these girls, and that's what the fans are going to come to terms with in about a month when the season tips and they start playing games.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I thought I saw like a lot of good, like quality players, like someone that can play a role. I do agree with Chelsea. I think Rakia Jackson. I think that was a hell of a pick. Honestly, like just right off the gate can contribute. Obviously Caitlin. Cameron Brink's interesting because I just think like it's gonna be more of her rim protecting right now. Like I think she's still got a lot more of like the versatility like on the shooting and everything like that. Going to have to get stronger and stuff. But I do think like you got women that will be good like quality role players, in there. But I don't think you're seeing like when you talk about generational, you're talking about out of the top.
Yeah.
What 12, 14 picks you got. 5 girls that are potential Hall of Famers, but I'm not I'm not gonna go that far. Like we gotta look at like when you look at the NBA side, like generational draft, like MJ's or when Patrick Ewing, or even the 2003 draft, like those were like loaded. Like that's a generational draft. You have like LeBron, D Wade, Bosh, Melo all in one draft. Like that's generational. You know what I mean? Like, I think you got a good draft. You got some people, you got players that will be quality pieces. You have a few girls that I think right away are going to, really click. But you also, the 2 French girls that got drafted, you got to see how, there are more projects. You got to see how it's going to come about. Again, like Cameron Brink and Cardosa. Like Cardosa is going to be what she is, right? You got to see how Angel Reese develops. There's still a lot of question marks as far as before you go and say generational. I mean, again, Ronnie, like you said, like there's more fans, which means people are more like uninformed. But it's like, okay, yes, these girls are good players, but there's still a lot of question marks. Like you got to go watch a WNBA game. Like it's very hard. Like Chelsea has said it before. Like it is really hard to be a star in that league. You know what I mean? And there's still question marks on some of these girls' game on how they transition towards. Even at the top, even as we know, Caitlin has star power, but she even kind of mentioned, and people even talk about, it's her passing that will probably be shown more. Like she's not going to be shooting all those deep threes like that in the beginning. It's not. They're not going to let her just do all that stuff. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be other things part of her game that will probably shine a little. Obviously she'll be able to shoot and score, but I'm saying like it's going to be other things with her game. She's not going to drop 30 like that. You know what I mean? Angel Reese isn't going to have a 15 rebound game. Like, you know what I mean? Like Cardosa is going to struggle because they're going to try to get her out the paint and have to defend and shoot. Like she's not just going to bully her way and score. There are girls just as big as her, strong. Like, like it's going to take time. Again, I talked about the French guards. They're young. Like they're going to have time to adjust to the game and deal with the physicality. You're not just going to come off ball screens and be open. You know what I mean? Like people need to watch the game more and see how that transition is. But generational, no, I agree with Chelsea on that. But I do think you got some good pieces. You're gonna have to see in 5 years if it becomes generational. But I don't think so.
Yeah, it doesn't. Just the amount of how long the league has been around and how many great players people can name. Some did come out in the same draft class. I think Chelsea's mentioned maybe like 2001. I do recall a few other draft classes being really good, and it's just more the excitement. But that's good. I personally think the girls, especially the girls already in the league, should play it up. I know they don't want to all the time, but it would be smarter than to say, yeah, these girls are great. They're going to help out our league. I don't always hear that. That's not always the message I hear from the old heads. Everybody's like, oh, Ronnie, look at the old basketball guys, what they say about LeBron. I'm like, yes, because they get it. They're always going to say positive things of how great these guys are. Like, especially obviously Magic Johnson's always saying great things. He thinks everybody's so great because he gets the marketing part. The girls are a little bit different. They're a little more territorial. They don't want to give it up. Not on my block kind of thing. Not on my watch kind of thing. Justin, maybe you have some more thoughts on that. I do hear that. I don't think that's the smartest strategy, but maybe that makes competitive. Maybe that's basketball. Hey, it's still about basketball. At the end of the day, it's still about basketball.
Yeah, well, just to educate the viewers just a little bit more, just speaking of draft class, like you mentioned 2001 had Lauren Jackson, Tamika Catchings, Jackie Stiles, Ruth Riley, Deanna Nolan, Penny Taylor. 2004 had Diana Taurasi, Elena Beard, Lindsay Whalen, Rebecca Brunson, Ebony Hoffman. Like when you look at some of these drafts, and even my favorite draft with my GOAT, 2011, Maya Moore, Liz Cambage, Courtney Vandersloot, Jantel Lavender. Like when you look at some of these classes, like all of the girls that I named would go 1 or 2 in this draft that happened yesterday. So that just speaks to how strong the league is and how people just, don't really know the history. But to your point about just WNBA, I think that I've seen a lot of praise of Caitlin Clark. I think that people are amplifying a lot more the criticisms of Caitlin Clark, which you can critique any player, like legitimately. We talk about basketball every day. Like Wemby, LeBron, everybody has deficiencies. Everybody has things that they have to sort out as they, move up a level or whatever. So I've heard a lot of praise of Caitlin. I think we amplify the criticism of her a lot more than anything else. I think the WNBA players in general just feel more offended with some of the narratives that surround Caitlin because with people that aren't familiar with the WNBA. Like we have had conversations, for example, about Wemby being generational, being exceptional. We didn't have a conversation about Wemby going into the league and being the best player ever as soon as he starts. Like these are some of the narratives that are surrounding Caitlin Clark when the WNBA players are just saying, hold on, like she is an exceptional player. She is a generational college player, but she's not coming into our league and being the best player right off the bat when people are, thinking that that's going to be the case when they have no idea of who's even playing in the W. So, I definitely understand what you're saying, Ronnie, but I have not seen a player, especially WNBA player, that said Caitlin Clark wasn't going to be good. They're just saying, like, can you let her come? Can you let her adjust? Can you let her play before you dub her the greatest player ever? When we have Asia Wilson and Breanna Stewart and Chelsea Gray and all these players that are, have been great. And that's what I think the biggest thing. And from my standpoint, somebody who touched the WNBA, wasn't a consistent WNBA player, but played overseas, like the WNBA is just hard. It's a very exclusive league. We're welcoming these new fans, but the bottom line is that the product has always been good. Now, whether we've had the exposure, whether these women have been to the forefront, but that's the biggest difference that we see in today's game. Because I remember in my time playing in the WNBA, we're playing at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday on HGTV and Lifetime Network. Like nobody's watching.
Nobody was watching.
Okay, that's a little exaggeration, but I'm just saying, like, we're not playing primetime ESPN. So a lot of these people just don't know what they don't know. The exposure is heightened tremendously. I'm happy that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and these girls are performing at a high level for the people that are watching, but that does not always speak to the greatness of the WNBA. And I think that's the biggest disconnect, personally.
I can understand that, but I do think there's a way maybe the tone, kind of how to go about it could be better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, anybody that thinks Caitlin's going to come and be the best player in the WNBA ever, I mean, that's just a stupid take. Like, I don't think you should pay attention to people like that. Like, that's just so dumb. But I do think when questions are asked about Caitlin, maybe they're just annoyed by it. I mean, I understand it. But, like, there's a better way to answer it to still uplift her more. Then to sound a lot more critical. I think that's just kind of where my stance is. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, she's not going to come in average 30, right? And that is annoying to hear. And, you see in the NBA some too. Like, guys are like, yo, like, Wemby not going to come in and just do this. LeBron's like, I've seen it before, but man, and I think that's just because the NBA's kind of been around longer. Like, they had their trial and error, right? Yeah. I think some of the veterans can do a better job of uplifting her, but still saying, look, she's not gonna just come in. Like, I just think it's how it's kind of the way you say it more and how it comes off. then
Comes off.
the message itself. Yeah. And it's hard because let's be real, like women's basketball and how the public will view a woman sometimes, if they are critical, they're going to heighten it even times like 3 when it should. When a man says it, they probably just saying it's whatever. So it just kind of it's hard, but I do think like it can come off just a little bit, be a little bit more uplifting, but also being like real and just saying, yo, like she's not going to come in and be the best player ever. She's a good player. She's going to be a good player in the league, but just I think it's just the way to go about it. But it's easier said than done. Let me say that. Like I get it. Like sometimes, and it's kind of a frustration thing with me, like sometimes guys look at women's basketball and want to talk about the drama. They don't want to talk about the actual substance. You know what I mean? And so if someone is just from an evaluation standpoint saying she's not going to come in and drop 30, they call her a hater. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not fair, but I've also seen it where it's like, okay, like it's kind of like a harsher, tougher take. And it's like, okay, like you can come and that a little bit,
Yeah.
Like,
I can see that. I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's a good point, you guys. I'm looking at it just from your various points. And I think, Ani, to that is what I'm thinking of is the growing part is like Wembanyama. Now, maybe you guys think he should be the defensive player of the year, but like the Spurs were not very good. They weren't very good, right? Similar LeBron's first year, the Cavs weren't very good, but they got good pretty fast. So, but again, at that level, they're already making all 15 million, 18 million, 20 million. That's where I'm getting. It's like if your guys want to make $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year, you almost have to do that. What you're saying, Ani, is grow that, have that uplifting tone. So you can, that's more what I'm thinking is like dig down the line 10 years. We want these girls making 400,000, 500,000. Well, if you're just kind of like, oh no, I'm not retiring. No, she ain't better than me. Well, you're gonna you're gonna stay down at the $100,000 a year level. That's kind of right. At some point, like you said, on it, because it's the amount of time the league's been around, and so there's got that moment. And I just think for Caitlin, honestly, she's gonna have to shoot some of those threes. I know you guys like she's gonna because
she's going to,
fans are gonna be like, well, this is what I came for. Like they're gonna want to see it, and so she's almost like Dr. J, basically Duncan. That's what people are going to go want to see. You know what I mean? Again, obviously the Indiana Fever have to try to win games and they're going to have to strategize, but she's going to have some games where she's going to struggle against. I'm sure she's going to have a 30-point game at some point,
Oh yeah.
People are going to be like, wow, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then we're going to be back over here again saying the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? It's just kind of where she's at. That's just how that fame is. Again, we'll see how much she struggles or how big of adjustment, but I just hope that it should be mostly positive. I believe.
Yeah, I think so. The league needs it to be positive. To your point, like Caitlin is bringing fans. She's bringing attention. She's bringing eyes. I want just people to just give her a little bit of grace too, and like let her figure it out. Let her grow. Let her make the adjustment. But she had 17,000 fans in Indy yesterday in an empty arena watching her get drafted. Like
that's what I'm
like the motion, the influence, like that kind of stuff just cannot be understated. I'm sorry. Like, we've talked about Caitlin a lot on this pod. And I've talked about just the criticisms of her. But the one thing I will say about Caitlin that I really respect is just the way she just carries it all. Like it's hard. Like it's so easy to talk about what somebody shouldn't do, couldn't do, can't do, but she's carrying the load. She's doing it with grace. She don't say nothing to nobody. She's not the one running around saying that she's going to be the best W player ever. No. All she's doing is just putting eyes on the women's game. And like, I thoroughly respect that. So let's get into the draft a little bit though. Just speaking of Caitlin.
Yeah.
Number 1 overall pick yesterday in the 2024 WNBA draft, as expected. When you have the opportunity to draft a player like Caitlin, like you win. You like it's a win. So, obviously Indiana had the number 1 pick. They had 2 other picks to follow. They ended up picking up Celeste Taylor at 15 and Leilani Correa at number 27. I see the Indiana Fever just being a very formidable team this upcoming season. They won 13 games last season. They missed the playoffs. You have to usually get to around 500 to be a playoff team in the W. So they're going to need at least 5 more wins. And I think with the addition of Caitlin Clark, the new dynamic duo of Clark and Aaliyah Boston, this team is going to have a chance to fight for the playoffs. And ultimately, Caitlin Clark is going to be the rookie of the year. That's my prediction so far. That's how the WNBA draft started yesterday, obviously, with Caitlin going number 1. And I think people are looking forward to that duo of her and Aaliyah. And also what's funny too is the Iowa fans and the South Carolina fans need to come together now. Okay. Both of our girls are on the same team. We're on the same team now. So that part, like, that's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic as the season starts. So
yeah. That's obviously she was going to go number 1. Let's talk a little deeper dive into it. Like you said, we want to talk about the basketball. Chelsea, real hot take. Best first round pick after Caitlin.
Best first round pick is a girl that I have mentioned on this pod previously. I'm gonna go and Ani just spoke to her too. Number 4, Rickea Jackson, drafted by the LA Sparks. When I look at Rickea Jackson, she was the SEC leading scorer for the last 3 seasons out of Tennessee. If you could build the ideal WNBA wing player, it would be her. 6'2", big body, strong, very skilled, very talented, very athletic. I think that she is the most pro-ready prospect in terms of the eye test. Like, obviously, you have Caitlin, who's shooting deep threes and is incredible. But, like, when you look at somebody who has the physical tools combined with, the basketball skill, like, it's her. She's a question mark for me. When we just talked about stars in this draft, she has the body and the ability to be a star. Now, will she? Remains to be seen. LA is in a rebuilding mode. They did lose Nneka Ogwumike to the Seattle Storm. They did lose their point guard Jordan Canada to the Atlanta Dream. So with the number 2 pick, they took Cameron Brink. With the number 4 pick, they took Rickea Jackson. And I think those 2 together is a great foundation to build upon. But I don't see LA making the playoffs. But I do see Rickea Jackson being a very, very, very good WNBA player for a long time.
Gotcha. The next hot take question we have, Chelsea, the best draft steal. Who's the girl that just like, wow, this girl? What were the other teams thinking? Or maybe they were just a right fit for that team?
The best draft steal, I'm going to start with their first pick. But the Aces absolutely stole the draft with pretty much every pick that they got. Considering they are the defending champions, they didn't have any really early picks in the draft. They didn't start until the 2nd round. They were able to get at number 16, Daisha Fair. We talked about her on the pod previously. 5'5" guard from New York. Dynamic scorer. Number 3 in women's college basketball history. Daisha Fair fell into the Aces' lap. Like, I don't understand, honestly, how she dropped into the 2nd round. I had her probably going at the 10-11 spot, but she fell into the Aces' lap. The Aces were also able to acquire Liz Kitley, who is out of Virginia Tech. She tore her ACL the last regular season game, last regular ACC season game, and she wasn't able to play in the NCAA tournament, but she would have been a top 7 pick in this draft if she was healthy. And the Aces were able to acquire her with their 2nd pick late in the 2nd round. So when you look at those players, obviously Liz Kitley's not going to be available this season. She's going to be recovering. But Daisha Fair, who in my opinion only dropped because she's 5'5", and she fell to the defending championship Aces, is absolutely huge.
Got it. Ani, get in there and ask her a hot take question. Put Chelsea on the spot.
Who's okay? So I watched a decent amount of U19 and U20. I've mentioned the French guards. Which one is the best? Which one is the best? So I have 2 of them. So which out of those 2 French guards that got drafted 1st round, which one do you think will have a better long-term career? And
I'm gonna go with the PG. Okay. Oh, go ahead. Go with the first question.
Well, and then the second question is, what 1st round pick was the most question? Do you think a team's gonna regret later on?
Ooh, regret.
Well,
That is a
yeah.
very tough question. Okay, let me go with your first question. Okay, so the Dallas Wings at number 9, they took Carla. I don't know how to say her last name. Letty, maybe she's a guard, she's a point guard from France. She's cold. Like people have not seen her because she's been overseas, but she's very good, very formidable. I don't know if she's going to come over right away. They're saying she is, but I know some of the other foreign players that were drafted later in the draft um, are not going to come over this season. But I would have to go with her. I think people need to YouTube this kid, her highlights, so you can see what she's going to bring to the W. And just a person that has intangibles that can really play with pace, pass, make plays. I mean, those type of girls do well in the league. So it would not surprise me if she comes in and she's able to help the Dallas Wings right away. So that's for question number 1. Question number 2, that is kind of a hard one. I want to say not so much from a basketball standpoint, but at number 6, the Washington Mystics took Aaliyah Edwards, who is a very good pick. I'm not going to dispute that. But at that time, Angel Reese was still on the table. I think from just hometown, Angel Reese is from Baltimore, hometown kid, influence, a team in Washington that's kind of rebuilding because they lost Natasha Cloud. Deladon's not playing this year. I really would have liked to see Angel Reese go there. And I just felt like she could have really uplifted that franchise and brought all the Be More fans out to DC and kind of really boosted that franchise. So for me, it really has nothing to do with basketball because I think Angel needs development 100%. I know that Washington is good at development, so I really would have liked to see her go there. Aaliyah Edwards is going to do just fine. She's a great post player. But I think that's going to be, I think later on down the line, the Washington Mystics might regret not taking Angel Reese for what she could have done for their franchise, because I think that on a smaller scale, she could do what Caitlin Clark is going to do for Indiana.
Do you think Minnesota nailed their pick? Because I know this question
do. Alyssa Peely, they took her at number 8. She's out of Utah. We've talked about her on the pod too, especially how she gave South Carolina that 30 points earlier in the season. She's one of those kids where it's like she doesn't really pass the eye test, a little bit undersized, probably needs to slim down a little bit in terms to keep up with the pace of the W as well. But she's super talented, Ani. There was not 10 players in this draft that were better than her. She can really stretch the floor, high percentage 3-point shooter, and big, strong body. I think it's a little bit untraditional to what we're used to, but I think that she can find her way in the league because she's just super skilled. Like, I think of players like Zach Randolph, who like aren't super athletic, but like still made an impact. Like, she's going to be like that to me. And I would have taken a chance on her if I was Cheryl Reeve too. She's going to go to a great franchise. She's going to, learn, grow, be coached. I think that she's going to find her way in this league. I really do.
Yeah. We'll see. Like you said, the Aces, again, people made a big deal of the girls who got drafted, or these girls are going to be teammates now. The Chicago Sky, people know those two players, Cardoso and Reese, and I'm looking at him like the Aces. To your point, got a good pick, got better. There's a chance of like give people the little take of, are the Aces the team to beat? Still, obviously, there's what does this draft ultimately mean in the terms of a few months from now when they're fighting for playoff spots and trying to win the title?
Yeah, well, the Aces, what they were able to do last night, like I just look at it as the rich get richer. They didn't need anybody. They're bringing pretty much everybody back. They're defending champs. They're the clear and far favorite to repeat again. But Becky Hammond made the most of the picks that they had. They are bringing 18 girls into camp, and only 12 are going to make the team. So it's a difficult roster to make considering the girls that are coming back. But Becky did what she had to do. Daisha Fair is making the roster. That's one. I will say they also, the Aces, picked up Kate Martin. We didn't talk about, and I want to speak about Kate Martin really quick because she was the biggest surprise of the draft. Kate Martin, guard, out of Iowa. Me and Ani have had our fights about Iowa. the people on Twitter told me that Caitlin Clark was playing with a whole bunch of school teachers and nurses. And here goes her running mate, Kate Martin, going number 18 to the defending champion Aces. And she's not even invited to the draft. She's sitting in the crowd. She was coming to the draft to support Caitlin Clark. And here's her name called. So that is the biggest surprise of the draft, the biggest feel-good story by a mile. And Caitlin Clark had good teammates, clearly. Her teammate went number 18 to the defending champion Aces.
Let me ask you this, Chelsea. Was she kind of in the quote-unquote W green room, or was she with those 17,000 Fever fans? Where was she?
No, the 17,000 Fever fans were in the Indiana Fever Stadium. They were watching like on the Jumbotron, just cheering, waiting for Caitlin to be picked, along with some of the players of the franchise. I know Maya Caldwell was there, Erica Wheeler was there, but Kate Martin was in the audience of the WNBA draft. She wasn't sitting at Caitlin Clark's table. She was literally in the audience with some of her other Iowa teammates and coaches, cheering, supporting Caitlin Clark. Next thing you know, the number 18 pick comes up and they get her. They walk up the stairs in the crowd and bring her down to the stage. She was drafted number 18. So, you know, I think that's an incredible story. It was obviously a huge surprise, but I just think that speaks to that Caitlin did have some talent on her team, and it's going to be extremely difficult for her to make the roster, but I think that it's nice. And I think the Aces, like, to leave the draft with Daisha Fair, Kate Martin, Elizabeth Kitley, who they're going to stash and put on injured reserve because they're ACL. And then to round out the draft, the last pick, they got Angel Jackson at a Jackson State 6'6" center, who is the second HBCU player in the last 20 years to get drafted. Like, the Aces won the draft in a sense. Like, look at the team that they already have. Look at the pieces they were able to add for the future. And wow, Becky Hamm is killing it.
Yeah, she's doing a great job. You know, that's great stories. It's good to see. We'll see how much this translates. Obviously, Caitlin Clark's going to play in front of a lot of fans. I know she's selling out Fevers or selling out bigger arenas on some of this regular seasons. We'll see how. I said I think she's going to have some great games. I don't know. Ani's like maybe 50-50. I know you're more Chelsea. Like, she's going to play pretty good.
She'll have some games for sure, but the every night like it was in college, like, no. It's
not like that.
No.
I think we'll just see how good her passing is.
Yeah.
I think the uninformed fans will see.
Gotcha. I think you're going to see, like you said, how good the league is, you know, and how big of an adjustment it is. Okay, let's close out real quick with the NBA play-in. And, you know, tonight on Tuesday night, we got the Lakers, New Orleans, and Golden State, Sacramento, then Miami, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago. Any thoughts on the plan before we get out of here?
Anthony Davis playing, so that's good. Pelicans have kind of been a little up and down. That's going to be an interesting one. I think LA's experience will kind of win out on that one. And then we had Golden State and who? It was Golden State and who?
Sac.
Yeah, Golden State. Malik Monk being got hurt. That hurts. That hurts a lot. I think Golden State. I think that's going to be a tough one for Sacramento. I'm interested to see Sabonis in that playing game because Golden State kind of shut him down last year in the playoffs, making him go right. I'm interested to see if he can actually like adjust well to Golden State's adjustments. Sabonis to me is more of a regular season guy. I want to see how he is in this kind of situation. But I think it's going to be LA that defeats the Pelicans. I think Anthony Davis is, if he's healthy and he's ready to roll, I think he's just such a dominant force inside that kind of just propels LA. But it's going to be a close game. I think that first one's going to be close. I think Golden State kind of just wears on Sacramento, and by the towards the middle to the end of the second half, like in the third quarter, they start to stretch that lead.
Got it. So couple quick questions for you, Chelsea, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
Are the Thunder really a disrespected number one seed? And how good are the Knicks, or does it matter? At the end, does this matter, or is Denver just going to pick it up and do it again? You know, speak a little bit about the Thunder, and then people want to, the Knicks haven't been good in 30 years. Do people just want the Knicks to be good? And then, you know, obviously we have Giannis maybe even a little bit injured in terms of the East. And then will it matter at the end? Is Denver just too good?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of, I don't want to say disrespect with OKC. I think it's more so uncertainty. Like the team is young, they don't have no experience for real. They haven't, been in some of the situations that they may, have to face if they make a really deep playoff run. So I think that's the biggest thing with them. Like I do think personally, I know Joker's gonna be MVP, but I really do think that Shai deserves it. Thinking about just the gauntlet that is the West and him being able to, him being able to take that team to a number 1 seed has to mean something. Like we talk about winning and stuff all the time. Like I just think Joker is the best player in the league. I 100% agree. Like I understand that. But the West is a gauntlet. There's so many good teams in the West. This kid taking this team with an average age of 24 all the way to the number 1 seed in the West. Like that's
out for like 2 straight weeks and they were still winning.
What'd you say?
Was he out for 2 straight weeks and they were still winning? Weeks,
but he's missed some games and they've still been okay because they're young and they're fun and they like to run and it is what it is.
That's Luka and Jokic to me. Like you pick either one. I think.
But why does bringing my team to the number 1 seed when I wasn't expected to do that not mean anything to you people?
I mean, like, it means something, but that team was like that. Okay, if you take Jokic out of Denver, are they a playoff team in the West? If you take Luka out of Dallas, are they a playoff team in the West?
No.
If you take Shai out of Oklahoma, that team is still a playoff team. That team
I don't agree with that.
Because Jalen, who do they close out games with? It's Jalen Williams. Williams is actually really coming along to be a dude. I think they're still a 7th, 8th seed. I still think they'd be in the play-in game. I don't think either of those teams without Jokic or Luka, how this is constructed, is a playoff team.
You do realize that Shai has the most 30-point games like in the NBA. So you're going to take away his 30 points and think that this team is going to be good like that?
That team is deep. Like
that team is not bad. They're very well coached.
That team is deep. That team is deep.
The coach was coach of the year, right?
Yeah. That team is deep. That team's good. Like
he did a hell of a job with the coaching, the development, the drafts, the young players. Yeah. So they're doing.
I'm not saying Shai. Like I know people try to, and I know I could be biased because I'm a Mavs fan, but like what Luka has done with that group, and they're a 5th seed, and really they've been one of the best teams in the NBA since the trade deadline. I put him second. I think Jokic is 1. I mean, I think Shai just right behind those guys.
Okay, so I want to change my opening statement. Yes, people do hate on OKC and disrespect them, Ronnie.
That's like
Ronnie. Yes, so I want to change it. You're absolutely right. OKC is disrespected. I totally agree with the season that Luka is having. He's absolutely amazing. Joker, always amazing. Best player in the league, hands down to me. I get it, but some stuff has to mean things. And I just think that what Shai was able to do with that team and taking them to a number 1 seed. If you're atop the conference and you have one of the best records, what are they? Maybe 2nd in record behind maybe Boston. Like it has to mean something. Like it just does.
If Shai wins MVP, people are going to look back and realize that was a bad choice. I think so. That he wasn't better. He's not better than the other 2.
Okay. So we're going to get into this. We can get into this when we get some results because we can stay here.
Robinson win the MVP, that Hakeem just busted his head wide open.
And y'all gave Derrick Rose the MVP over my guy Braun. I get it. It happened.
I think people.
It happened.
I think these guys that vote MVP do a bad job. I think they
sometimes they pick like when a guy has 1 year.
Yeah, but I think
one hell of a year. You never know when Shai's going to be. Now maybe Shai's going to be a perennial MVP, but maybe not. You don't.
Yeah, are we just going off of this season? We can't just go off of just like this season. I don't, Joker's been exceptional, but I don't think he's been better than Shai this season, just this season.
I think he has. I think Shai has. I think that OKC squad is really, really good. I think when you don't have Luka and Jokic, because most valuable, it's again, I know I get it, he's the number 1 seed, but when Shai's out, they can still win games. When Jokic and Luka is out, they can't win games.
That's a problem because they still have guys on the roster. Maybe it's coaching then too. Like I should be able to win games with Kyrie Irving, like as my lead guy. And every time Kyrie doesn't, every time Luka doesn't play, Kyrie has 40.
Kyrie missed 25 games.
Not this year.
Yeah, he did. Kyrie missed 25
Oh, he
games
missed
in the
25?
Michigan. Yes.
All I know is every game that Luka didn't play, Kyrie went crazy and had 40, just about.
Well, just
It is
imagine
still-
if Dallas could have Brunson. Wow.
Huh?
Yeah. And you
Dallas-
guys said that Luka needed help. Well, he had his help and his guy Brunson, who's killing it with the Knicks, and you guys got rid of him, Ani. So let's talk
we got
about it.
Kyrie, but they still can't win without Luka. Luka is above Shea MVP. It's Luka, Jokic show. If it's anything other than that, that's just because.
I'm taking Luka and Joker as better players than Shea, but I just think
if Shea gets MVP, that's just the media just want to choose someone different. He ain't the MVP.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Y'all had no problem with that when it was my guy LeBron. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I agree. Derrick Rose didn't deserve it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Again, but that's going to be the story of Derrick Rose's career now because of the injuries and how when he got that one MVP and people thought he might be an all-time great, and then the injuries happen. That's kind of what I hope doesn't happen to Shai. I hope he's a perennial MVP and even wins one if he doesn't get it this year.
He doesn't rely on athleticism, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, he's just a great player. So we're gonna get more into that. I think we don't have much time because we can keep going about the NBA playoffs. Let the plan happen. We'll see what happens. Again, it looks like similar to the Purdue UConn that it probably would be Denver and Boston. That's I think the final that the public is thinking is going to happen, and or maybe even looking forward to happen. And maybe OKC or another team will bust that party. So we'll follow it. But for now, we're going to get out of here. For Chelsea Hopkins, Ani Umana, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for staying with us. Appreciate Chelsea giving us all that great insight on the W. Until next time, we're out of here.
Bye, guys.